them and their teams for really extraordinary work over these past few days. We also are joined by Lieutenant Governor-elect Kathy Hochul. We have General Patrick Murphy from the National Guard, Major Michael Soretto from the State Police. Commissioner Richard Ball has joined us from the Department of Ags and Markets. He's going to be assessing today any damage done to farmlands, livestock, etc. We have Rowan DeStito, who's the Commissioner of OGS, who is in charge of running the stockpile. Commissioner Joe Martens from DEC. DEC does a lot of flood control work and creek maintenance, creek control, which is very important in terms of whether or not water reaches flood stages. So Commissioner Martens is here. He's been a great help, and he'll have a full agenda today. Commissioner Joan McDonald from the Department of Transportation. Commissioner Howard Zucker from the Department of Health. In case there are any health issues, Chairwoman Audrey Zibelman of the Public Service Commission. She'll be working with National Grid to make sure if there are any power outages that National Grid is ready to respond and is responding on a timely basis, and that National Grid has done the kind of preparatory work they need to do to be ready for this situation. Bill Davis from Homeland Security, and we've been joined by Kevin Wisely from the Onondaga Emergency Services, who's giving us technical assistance. As far as the snow removal, the operation has been proceeding well virtually across the entire affected area. There was still a driving ban in Lackawanna and in the city of Buffalo. Lackawanna posed unique problems, if you might, because of the design of Lackawanna. You have many narrow streets. You had cars parked on both sides of the street, which left a narrow path in the middle. You had a lot of abandoned cars in Lackawanna. County executive was mentioning that at the end of the day, he believes more cars will be towed from Lackawanna than the entire rest of the county, believe it or not. So we have some specific problems in Lackawanna that we are addressing. I was there last night. Hamburg, we've made good progress, still more to do. And as I mentioned, the only driving bans left are Lackawanna and the city of Buffalo. So good progress there. We'll be preparing to open this morning exit 57A on the thruway, which was the last exit that was closed due to a driving ban, but that driving ban has been lifted, so we'll be opening that exit. We've turned to preparation in case of a flood. We started doing this the past couple of days. That would be the second shoe that dropped. First shoe was 7 feet of snow. Second shoe then becomes flooding if the weather conditions cause it. How would it cause it? By an increase in the temperature, which dramatically melts 7 feet of snow quickly, overfilling the creeks and the drainage system, and that's a possible flooding situation. Flooding, in my opinion, is worse than dealing with snow. Floods are much more dangerous and destructive than people think. It sounds relatively harmless. It's water, and it comes up and it goes down. It's not water. It's a toxic brew is what happens in a flood. It has sewage in it. It has all sorts of runoff in it. And it does tremendous damage with anything that it hits. So flooding is nothing to take lightly. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. DEC is checking the creeks and the pumping stations today to make sure the pumping stations are all operational, to make sure we have backup generators for any pumping stations that may get into trouble. DEC operates its own pumping station, which we'll be visiting later on. We'll be talking to the local governments about their pumping stations to make sure that we're maintaining stream control. Individuals can be helpful here on your own home, your own gutters, and if there's a drain in front of your home, to the extent you can, without hurting yourself or creating any dangerous situation, clear those drains so the water has somewhere to go. We're preparing evacuation plans and a shelter system. The Red Cross will set up a shelter system. We'll be setting up a backup shelter system in case we exceed the capacity of the Red Cross shelter system at SUNY schools and at Erie Community College, which will be a backup shelter system with material there. If you live in an area that typically floods or has flooded, or if you live near that area, prepare to evacuate for a flood situation. It's not enough that your house has never been flooded before, right? There's always a first time, and this may be the first time. So if you're even near a neighborhood or an area that floods, I would prepare to evacuate, which means have a bag packed, which means assemble the important papers in your home and in your life. Obviously, take things out of the basement that you want to protect, put them on the second floor. Have a bag packed, and if you think there is a possibility once the flooding starts that you may have to evacuate, sooner is rather than later. And we've run into this problem before where people wait too long and then we can't get to them. So please err on the side of caution. We'll have the shelter set up. If there's a possibility that you think your home may be flooded, evacuate earlier rather than later. Worst case scenario, you spend a few hours in a shelter and then you go back to your house. That is much better than being caught in your home, especially if you have young children. So again, that is up to the individual. The citizen has a responsibility in all of this also, and I urge you to take that with caution. The 311 system will be fully operational. We're going to have a backup system to the 311 system, which if the 311 system becomes overwhelmed, which has happened in other emergencies, not here in Western New York, we'll have a backup system in place and you'll be notified of those numbers. We're bringing in teams of structural engineers. We hope to get back to business on Monday. Government offices will be opened on Monday. If you're in a community that still has a travel ban, you will not be expected to go to work if you're a state employee. Otherwise, we hope to get back to work on Monday. Schools will be opened. We're sending in teams of structural engineers to inspect any school that we think could have a potential of a structural problem. Obviously, we don't want children going into a school if we have any questions about the structural integrity of that school. We also have the availability for emergency food for people who are homebound. This is for people who are really homebound. It's not just for, it's not a luxury service, primarily for senior citizens, primarily for the disabled. Again, you can access that through 311. We'll also have a backup system where the National Guard is making food deliveries, medicine deliveries, etc. Last point, on a personal level, we have thousands of people from throughout the state who are in Buffalo and Erie and have been working for days. If you're looking out your door and you see National Guardsmen or you see public employees working, give them a wave. If you notice on the trucks, you'll see signs from all over New York. You'll see workers from Nassau County. You'll see FDNY, Fire Department, employees who've come up from New York City. They're what they call the Incident Management Team, which is one of the most skilled teams they have in the New York City Fire Department. You have people from Westchester, you have people from Yonkers, you have people from Albany, Syracuse, and you'll see all the different signage on the doors. They've been very, very kind. You have a lot of people who drove those trucks 10, 12 hours to even get here before they started working. And then they've been working for days. So give them a wave, maybe you give them a cup of coffee, you offer them a sandwich, or just a smile is nice, because they're really going out of their way to be helpful, and we want them to know that we're appreciative. With that, I will turn it over to County Executive Mark Poloncarz.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor, for your continued commitment to our community, first with the movement of supplies, equipment in, and the National Guard to help deal with the snow removal, and now, of course, the hundreds and hundreds of pieces of equipment that are at the ready in the case of flooding. Erie County Department of Environment and Planning, through its Division of Sewerage Management, is ready in the event of flooding. We have 8 sewer districts. We have coordinated, and we have 3 staging areas for pumps and generators that the Division of Sewerage Management has on hand at all times, and we've rented additional supplies if needed. I feel very comfortable about where the Division of Sewerage Management is in conjunction with what the state has brought in. We certainly have the supplies, and there's a great coordination team at the Emergency Operations Center that's planning the logistics of what's necessary in the event of flooding based off of what we've seen in the past. Examination of floodplain maps, recent floods that we've seen. So I certainly would advise the public to do exactly what the governor said in preparation for potential flooding. Make certain you have an evacuation plan and supplies at the ready. If you live in an area where there's been flooding in the past and you have valuables in your basement, you should remove them now before there's potential for flooding. We saw what happened in West Seneca in the past year, where people's entire livelihoods and pictures and mementos that were in the basement were lost. If you have those there now, please remove them. As the governor noted, we're still having some issues with regards to snow removal. I feel really good about where the general county is right now. The city of Lackawanna, the town of Hamburg, a couple of the villages are still dealing with issues. The county has many, many supplies right now across the entire county. Last night, after talking with Mayor Szymanski, I ordered the county tow truck operators to immediately focus on parts of the 2nd Ward in Lackawanna. We realized that Center Street, Franklin Street, Electric Avenue had basically become parking lots. They are other than South Park Avenue, the main north-south routes between Blaisdell area and Lackawanna, the city of Buffalo. While South Park had been cleaned, the side streets had not. As of approximately 8:30 this morning, county tow truck operators had removed 225 vehicles from Electric Avenue, as well as parts of Kirby Avenue. They were now moving in with payloaders and plows to clean out Electric Avenue, and we were moving with our tow truck operators to Franklin, and then we'll go to Center Street. This is an operation that'll probably take all day. Vehicles that were moved on Electric, Kirby, and other parts of Lackawanna that were moved by county-operated tow truck operators or county-approved tow truck operators were moved to the VFW post on South Park Avenue, the Weber post, and Lackawanna Stadium facility right across the street. So if your vehicle was on Electric Avenue or one of these other avenues and you do not see it, after all is said and done and the road is clear, it is in all likelihood at the VFW post, as well as the stadium on South Park Avenue. As in the cases of the prior vehicles that were towed, the county is not charging homeowners, car owners for the cost of the tow. We will accept that cost. Based on what the estimates are, the total towing cost for the county will be somewhere in the $150,000 to $200,000 range when all is said and done. I talked to Supervisor Stephen Walters of the town of Hamburg this morning. All major roads are open. Secondary roads are in very good shape. County assets as well as DOT assets, National Guard, are now working their way through various side subdivisions along with the town in the town of Hamburg and its portion of Lakeview. Because of the way these subdivisions are, it's going to take some time to even get into the back of some of these subdivisions, because in many of these areas they received 6 feet of snow or more. While there has been some snow melt, there's exceptional hard pack on the bottom, and as a result we still have to come in with loaders and pick up loads and put them in tow trucks and slowly move the process along. So I know that there are people in both the city of Lackawanna, the town of Hamburg, that are still waiting for the streets to be cleaned. We understand it. We're working with our town and local officials to address the matter, and we're moving forward on that. The county, I just want to thank all the county staff. They've been working constantly. There's some people who are putting in 20 hours a day and just constantly come out there, especially our plow operators, our contractors that we've hired, and our tow truck operators. We were in a really good shape this morning. I like where we are. We're still not done yet, And as the governor said, we all must be vigilant as there's the possibility for flooding and high winds tonight. And we are certainly at the ready for issues with high winds and the possibility for power outages. But I just want to thank everyone for their patience. And as I've said before, if you see an emergency responder, if you see a tow truck operator, a plow operator, they're working constantly. Thank them, because they're really doing a great job.
Well said. Mayor Byron Brown.
Thank you very much, Governor. I want to thank the Governor for being here in our community for 5 consecutive days, for his tremendous support, which is really unprecedented, that he has provided for our community during the storm and as we continue to try to recover from the storm. I want to thank all of the state agencies that are in the community. I want to thank the National Guard. The work that they have been doing with us has truly been incredible. It's helped us to move much more quickly trying to recover from this storm. We've made great progress in the city of Buffalo. 100% of streets in Buffalo are passable. Now we've had 80% of streets that have had a second pass of a truck going through. We have carted over 85,000 tons of snow out of South Buffalo and Kaisertown. So the snow removal effort has been simply incredible. City crews, state workers, National Guard have been doing a phenomenal job. In the city of Buffalo, the lead agency for flooding prevention and flooding analysis is the Buffalo Sewer Authority, working with the Department of Public Works. We're getting significant support from state agencies, and the governor has requested that the Fire Department of New York bring its incident management team in. They are embedded with our crews, our departments, mapping, looking at floodplain maps and doing preparation, making assessments of the potential for flooding in areas of the city where that could potentially occur. Like Governor Cuomo and County Executive Poloncarz, want to instruct people to make preparations now to remove things that they can from their basements, to unplug things that they can, to make sure that there are no shock or electrocution hazards. People have been very cooperative. I had the opportunity this morning to tour many neighborhoods in Kaisertown and South Buffalo, assisting residents in digging out. People are in good spirits. Want to thank the people of Buffalo and Erie County for their great cooperation during this historic storm, and really showing the nation and the world what it means to be a Buffalonian, what it means to be a Western New Yorker, and why we are truly the city of good neighbors.
Hear, hear. Well said. Any questions? We are not anticipating anything specifically. The old expression, I think, is applicable here. You prepare for the worst, you hope for the best, and that's what we're doing. We are fully prepared whatever the situation brings. Obviously, if we have flooding that jeopardizes human life, then we would have a very serious evacuation system, and we have the shelters set up, et cetera. We have another facility that has all sorts of equipment that could be utilized in the case of flooding. We have over 50 boats. We have what they call swift water rescue teams ready. But that's, if we get lucky, and I said a prayer this morning, we get lucky, then none of this will be deployed. But I want to make sure we're prepared if we do need it.
The school district reached out to me about an hour ago. They are still making an assessment. We have not gotten any notification of the status of schools being opened or closed. They have their transportation people out in the affected neighborhoods in the city, and they will make that determination sometime later today.
Excuse me, let's do one at a time. I'm sorry, sir?
We do have teams out inspecting buildings, not only municipal buildings, school buildings, but also residential and commercial structures as well.
First off, in Lackawanna, after this, I'm immediately going out there to tour it. As most people know, it's my hometown. I know it exceptionally well. I know the streets that are seem to be the clog points at this point. These are streets that are pre-1900 that usually have alternate street parking. All the vehicles prior to the storm were parked on the correct side of the street. During the storm, people parked on the other side of the street, and then that only leaves one lane in the middle, and all the other vehicles around the street got stuck. So it basically looks like a three-lane highway. So we're going to go out there and check it. I don't have any estimate on when Lackawanna is going to be open. What I've heard is that the Fourth Ward's in pretty good shape, that most of the streets in the Fourth Ward have had at least vehicles go down to move snow. The Third Ward is coming along, the Second Ward is a mess, and the First Ward is still in decent shape. I want to remind everybody, if there's a driving ban in the city of Lackawanna, that means there's a driving ban, but if you're an emergency personnel who's trying to get to Mercy Hospital for your shift, you are allowed to go through. Make sure you have your ID that shows that you're a doctor, a nurse, an orderly, even cleaning staff. If you work at Mercy Hospital and you're coming from Hamburg, where there is no driving ban anymore, you have to pass through Lackawanna to get to Mercy Hospital or something similar. You are allowed to proceed as long as you have your ID. So I want people to understand that. We've heard that from folks. I work at Clyde, I work at Children's, but I happen to be in Hamburg, or I happen to be in Lackawanna. My street's open. How do I go out if there's a driving ban? Have your ID with you, so if you do get pulled over and stopped, which you might, because I know they're doing that, you can show New York State Police, New York State troopers who are on site in Lackawanna, as well as Erie County Sheriff and City of Lackawanna, that you have the ability to pass through. They will let you down. South Park, and in Buffalo, the mayor said as well. South Park and Abbott are open for emergency personnel. We are using these roads to move a tremendous amount of snow that are in some of these streets to dump sites outside of the city of Lackawanna, as well as move vehicles. So we need to have a free flow of traffic on South Park and Abbott if we're to get Abbott and the rest of Lackawanna open fairly quickly. We truthfully at this point are looking at localized flooding, not so much flash flooding, based on the information that we've discussed internally along with the state as well. So we're fully expecting areas of low-lying culverts underneath train bridges to flood and potentially rapidly flood, so we may see some street closures. I actually was in touch with one of the residents last night from the Lexington Green complex, where they've seen, unfortunately, flooding twice in this past year as a result of the earlier blizzards. We were staging some pump equipment with the town to be on site in the event of flooding. This is a different circumstance than what happened in the past, because those floods are primarily ice jam related. There's no ice jam on the creeks in the Buffalo River at this point. So what we're doing in Erie County, especially with our Division of Sewage Management, as I said, we have 8 districts throughout the county. Most of these are sanitary sewers, but in Lackawanna it's sanitary and storm sewers. So what we're doing is moving equipment, pumps and generators to 3 key staging points based off of the expectation that we may see flooding in a particular place. So we don't expect to see flooding right now in certain parts of the county, especially where they didn't receive a tremendous amount of snow, like Tonawanda. So we're moving equipment that we have from the sewer districts up there to other areas, so that we're addressing the flooding right now that may occur starting tonight. And then there's the potential for areas that have always flooded, like Tonawanda Creek and Ellicott Creek in the north towns. We anticipate if there's going to be flooding, that may not actually happen until Tuesday. So we're staging the equipment where we need it for tonight. And if we do not receive any flooding in that areas, then we will move it into the north towns with the expectation that there may be flooding in Tonawanda Creek, Ellicott Creek, Black Creek, Murder Creek, where we've seen it in the past. Thankfully, the vast majority of that area is more agricultural than suburban. No, we have not. The good news this morning is that through this night we've seen a significant amount of snow melt. You can see it as you drive in, as you go through these neighborhoods. The snowpack has dropped in some areas by 1 foot to 2 feet, and I do not have, nor I think the mayor, any evidence of significant snowing at this point.
It's not that the National Weather Service failed us. It's that the National Weather Service has a certain number of weather stations, and they get that information from those weather stations. And they perform the best they can with the information that they have. If you want to have a more accurate prediction of weather, you need more weather stations. You need more centers that are detecting changes in weather and communicating it. We are designing for the state what we believe is going to be the most sophisticated weather detection system, where we have hundreds of weather detection stations all in one state. So when the wind starts to pick up, when the rain starts to fall, you can detect it very early in the pattern's development, and then you can track the trajectory of that weather pattern, which would obviously give you more data. It would give you more information, which would be more reliable. No, I think they do the best they can, and they do a good job, but they only know what they know from their weather detection systems. And here, where it hits, 10 miles can be a big difference. Whether it comes at midnight or 6 in the morning can be a very big difference. So what 6 hours, 10 miles, if you had this information beforehand, it would be much more helpful. We are experiencing a pattern of extreme weather that we have not seen before. I don't want to get into a political debate at this time about climate change, causes, etc. Forget the causes. Is it global warming? Is it reliance on fossil fuels? Forget the causes. What is inarguable is the result. And the result is a pattern of extreme weather that we have not seen. I've been governor for 4 years. In 4 years, we've had more federally declared disasters and more extreme weather events than we have had in preceding decades. So the frequency is up. They argue the cause, but nobody argues but that the frequency is up. So 10 years ago, predicting the weather tomorrow was almost a matter of convenience, right? Now it can be a matter of life and death. And knowing where that extreme weather is going to hit and knowing when it's going to hit is very important. We are deploying thousands of people. The deployment that we underwent, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to move all this equipment and all these personnel. The more information you have as to when and where, first, the more effective you will be, and second, the more efficient you will be. So both are relevant, and we will have literally hundreds of sensors all throughout the state. We'll be able to tell when a creek starts to rise, let's say the North Country, for example, when a creek starts to rise at the top of the mountains, which means the creek then is going to come down the mountain, pick up more rain, and you're going to have floods in the valleys. Knowing that 2 hours before, 3 hours before, can give us information we never had before. We can do evacuations, et cetera, that we were never able to do before. So it's not, the National Weather Service does a very good job. We want even more information and even more data, and the only way to get it then is to put up more stations that have more sensors. It will be headquartered in Albany, yes, but it will be the sensors literally communicate over the internet. And they will do wind speed, rise in water, temperature of the water. They really are fascinating devices. No, No, the sensors are placed, they're maintained, but they're not manned.
It's like Farnham. I have not talked to the mayor about this. She just recently called as I was heading here, and I'm going to have an opportunity to talk. I do know some of the backstory. It appears that there was an individual who was working on Farnham equipment who was an unlicensed operator, and the mayor asked the Department of Public Works head to remove that individual, and there was a disagreement at what was going on. It may have actually been the son of the Public Works Commissioner in the village of Farnham, and at that point the mayor either suspended or fired for insubordination after I understand they had to call sheriffs out to break up this argument. Unfortunately, word got out very quickly, whether from the Department of Public Health's chief in Farnham of what occurred, and the plow operators who were on the road, for whatever reason, parked their vehicles right sometimes in the middle of the road and left them running and walked off the vehicles, which you ask me is completely irresponsible. It's the equivalent of wildcat strike, which of course is illegal. Once we heard about this, we got a desperate plea from the mayor's office that the Department of Highways in Erie County sent out a district engineer, at least one, I believe there was a second plow operator was on the road who helped out, who went to where the vehicles were located, moved them to the side of the road or moved them to the village barns, and of course turned them off. And at this point, if there are snow removal issues that need to be addressed in the village of Farnham, the county has assumed that responsibility until such time as this sort of uprising, as the governor noted when I was briefing him earlier, in Farnham is resolved. But it's silly, it should never have happened, and I feel very bad for the residents of Farnham that they had to deal with this. It does not appear to have caused any issue with regards to life or, for that matter, personal property damage, as the roads have since been cleared. But it's the kind of thing that happens when nerves get frayed and people have been working for countless hours in a row. We're looking into it to try to find out more information. I certainly hope that we never have another little uprising like this, whether it's the village of Farnham or not.
Okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you.